You have been lied to for 50 years. That recycling symbol on your plastic bottle, it's not what you think it is. In fact, it might be the greatest marketing scam in the modern history, and I have the industry documents to prove it. By the end of this video, you will never look at that little triangle the same way again. Every year, the world produces 430 million metric tons of plastic. The United States alone generates tens of millions of tons of plastic waste annually. So here's the $1,000,000 question. If the recycling works so well, where is the all plastic going? The answer will shock you. In the United States, only 5 to 6% of plastic is actually recycled. That's not a typo, less than 6%. But here's the kicker, the plastic industry has known this for decades. Let me put this in perspective. When you throw that plastic bottle in the recycling bin, you probably think you are doing something good for the environment, right? Well, statistically speaking, there's a 94% chance of that bottle is heading straight to a landfill or incinerator. According to the recent research, of all the plastic ever produced globally, only 9% have been recycled, 12% was incinerated, and a staggering 79% has accumulated in landfills or the natural environment. And these numbers haven't been improved much despite decades of recycling campaigns. But here's where it gets really interesting. The plastic industry didn't just fail at recycling, they actively promoted a myth they knew was false. In 2024, a bombshell report called The Fraud of Plastic Recycling exposed something incredible. Using internal industry documents, researchers proved that Big Oil and the plastics industry have been running a campaign of depiction for over 50 years. Here's the timeline that will blow your mind. As early as 1974, that's 51 years ago. Internal industry documents show that plastic companies knew recycling wasn't the economically viable option. But instead of being honest about this, they doubled down on promoting recycling. Remember that recycling symbol? Starting in 1989, oil and plastics executives lobbied almost 40 states to mandate this symbol to appear on all plastic products. Even when there was absolutely no way to economically recycle them, plastic production exploded from 2 million tons in 1950 to 120 million tons annually today. That's a 6,000% of increase. But before we dive into why recycling doesn't work, let me show you the real journey of that plastic bottle in your hand. It starts deep underground as a crude oil, extracted and refined into petrochemicals. These chemicals are heated, molded and shaped into your bottle using a massive amounts of energy and water. The bottle is manufactured, filled, shipped across the country and sold, and used for maybe 15 minutes before you are done with it. You toss it in the recycling bin, feeling good about yourself. It goes to a sorting facility where if you are lucky, it gets cleaned and processed. The best case scenario, it becomes a lower grade plastic product like carpet fiber or park bench, but it can never become a good food grade bottle again. After 1 or 2 cycles, it's done. Let's see the worst case and most likely scenario. It sits in a landfill for 400 to 1000 years, slowly breaking down into microplastics that contaminate our soil and groundwater. Or it ends up in a waterways traveling through rivers to the ocean, where it joins the 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic already floating in our seas. There it's mistaken for food by marine animals, enters the food chain and eventually ends up back on your dinner plate as microplastics. Scientists have found microplastics in drinking water, sea salt, beer, honey and even human blood. That 15 minutes convenience has become a permanent part of our ecosystem and our body. So now you have seen the real journey of plastic. So let's talk about why doesn't plastic recycling work. Let me break down the science they don't want you to know. First, there are dozens of different types of plastic and they can't be recycled together. It's like trying to unbake a cake. Once different plastics are mixed, separating them is incredibly expensive and often impossible. Second, every time plastic is recycled, it degrades. Unlike aluminum or glass, which can be recycled indefinitely, plastic can only be recycled a few times before it becomes unusable. This is called downcycling, not the true recycling. Third, it's simply not economical for companies. Recycled plastic often costs more to produce than virgin plastic made from oil. When oil prices are low, recycled plastic can't compete. And finally, contamination. One greasy pizza box can contaminate an entire batch of recyclables. Most plastic waste arrives at recycling facilities too contaminated to process. Now let's talk real numbers, because the recycling industry loves to play with statistics. When they say 87% of their product is made from recycling materials, they are talking about all the recycling materials in that product, like paper, aluminum, glass, and every other thing. For plastic specifically, the numbers are devastating. Even in countries that are considered recycling leaders, plastic recycling rates rarely exceed more than 25%, and that's good for them. But in most of the world, the rates are far worse. Meanwhile, 10 million tons of plastic end up in our oceans every year. And let me put that in your perspective, that's equivalent to dumping a garbage truck full of plastic into an ocean every minute. Every minute. So, how did they convince us that recycling was the solution? Through one of the most sophisticated marketing campaigns in history. Internal documents reveal that industry executives knew recycling wouldn't work, but they promoted it anyway to avoid regulation and maintain public support for plastic productions. They didn't just advertise, they funded economical programs and educational programs, partnered with environmental groups, and even created entire organizations dedicated to promoting recycling, all while knowing it was mostly a drama. And here's another kicker. They spent more money marketing recycling than they ever invested in actual recycling infrastructure. So what does this mean for you? First, it means that most of your well-intentioned recycling efforts have been meaningless. But don't feel bad about it. By convincing you that the plastic waste was your responsibility to recycle, they shifted blame from the companies producing billions of tons of plastic to you, the consumer, trying to do the right thing. But here's the empowering part. Now that you know about the truth, you can make a real change, reduce plastic use, support companies using alternative materials, and demand actual solution instead of plastic recycling theater. The good news, real solutions exist. Some companies are developing truly biodegradable alternatives. Others are creating closed-loop systems where plastic is actually reused effectively. Countries are starting to ban single-use plastics. The Global Plastics Treaty aimed for 60% reduction in fossil fuel-based plastic production by 2040. And consumers are fighting back. When people understand the truth, they make different choices. Here's what you can do right now. Share this video with everyone you know. That plastic industry spent 50 years spreading this lie. It's time we spend some time spreading the truth. Drop comment and tell me what surprised you the most about this plastic recycling depiction. And if you want to see more videos that exposing lies that affect your daily life, hit the subscribe button.